Hello, my name is Tammy Davis, and welcome to day 20 of 30 Days of Essential Oils. I'm your mentoring guide and your neighborhood alchemist. So I'm thinking I'm going to maybe drop that to be really transparent here. I'm loving what I'm doing. I love the oils. If you're new, thank you for tuning in. If there's something you'd like to hear about, by all means, let me know. I do have over 30 years of independent research and application with the oils. I'm internationally certified as a master clinical aromatherapist. I do have a background in pharmacology as well as nutrition and the ongoing study of plant constituents as they relate to human health and drug development. However, that said, I really want to focus on, and it's probably coming through in a lot of these videos already. If you go back to 31 Days of Essential Oils, which was a video series I did between April and May, and have subsequently started uploading blogs on those. If you read the first post on Palmarosa, you can see there's just an evolution through these blogs, and even through the way I'm talking about them, that the way I recommend oils is not anything you're going to find on websites and books. So if you've come this far and what you're looking for is to hear the properties and uses of essential oils, just feel free to turn this off, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm introducing a whole different way of looking at the oils and working with the oils and integrating the oils more specifically. So my focus has really become, for lack of a better term, I've trademarked the name Aromagenomics. That is my work. I've been working under that, guys, for a long time, although my website's called Synergessence. It's really based on the therapeutic effects or the physiological effects of the essential oils at the level of the epigenome. And the reason for that is because I'm actually going to do a podcast later today, which will be on Mixcloud. I'm going to put that link in the box below with regards to environmental sensitivities, which has a lot to do with the way the body is responding. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping that I can actually inspire consideration, is how I want to say that. Because ultimately the way we're looking at the body is as if it's dysfunctional, and it's not. It's actually working quite well. How to use the oils, what science understands about the oils, and we're going to talk about that a little bit with this oil today, which is Ambrette. But what they understand about the oils is significant, and the way they use these chemicals is very impactful. I'm not going to say that it's bad or good or right or wrong. I'm just going to say it's impactful. And while there's some idea that, we can kind of limit our use of these chemicals, which we absolutely can, there's not, at this point, any way to eliminate 100% of them. There's 45 million of them, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them that we're exposed to on a regular basis, of which over 70,000 have been confirmed endocrine disruptors. So that means that they're having an impact on our endocrine system. And what you're going to hear today with Ambrette is kind of along the same things. But I don't say these things, again, because it's bad. It's that they are impacting our system, and learning how to integrate into the body is really what I'm here to teach. That's what I think. It's not about making anybody else's work wrong. It's just to be a little bit more mindful, and just another point of view to consider. So, like I said, I've mentioned a couple times now, Ambrette is the oil that I wanted to talk about, and it's interesting. I've come this far. Now we're 50 oils in, and we can definitely keep going. There's a lot of oils. And I will keep plugging away. I'm trying not to duplicate anything I've done so far. Like, I haven't done any more rosemaries. I haven't done any more eucalyptuses. I will get into spearmint here. I will probably cover Ravensara, which is different than the Ravensara we talked about yesterday. There will be some, definitely no replication. And even if the name sounds like it's repeated, it's not the same. With Ambrette, it's an interesting one. It's generally, it's more musky. and it has, sometimes it's distilled, although oftentimes it's a solvent extraction. So you want to be careful with that. If you get one, you want to make real clear for yourself what the distillation process was. What was the extraction process, rather? Because if it was distilled through steam distillation, then that's great. You know, it's a pretty clean, straightforward, at least it should be, although they are adulterating quite a few oils these days. Just know your source. But if it's not steam distilled and it's a solvent extraction, you want to make sure that it is CO2, and which is going to make it a little bit more costly. It's going to, you know, Ambrette's not a cheap oil to begin with, but it's going to make the price a little bit higher because of the type of extraction process, which is significant when it comes to oils. A lot of them these days are being steam distilled, but there are still some available that are coming through solvent extraction, and this is something I haven't discussed so far. The solvent is oftentimes, what am I trying to say, like an alcohol, like hexane, or I think hexane and is the primary one. And the thing is, with the different types of solvents they're using, they're not completely removed. So there's traces, the residue from the solvent remains in the oils, and so that will be passed on through the body. It takes about 26 seconds for the skin to absorb, which is really weird to me, knowing the fact that we recognize a number of plant constituents to increase tissue permeability, and the skin will absorb things rather quickly already. And then if you add these additional chemicals, it's just like hastening the absorption rate. And not necessary. It's not necessary. The body's pretty damn good at what it does. Anyway, like I said, with Ambrette, it can come in two forms. It can be either steam distilled or solvent extraction. CO2 is clean because once they pop the top, you know, basically the CO2, the carbon dioxide, it's gone. There's nothing left in the oil. It's just gone. It's a cleaner extraction. And it's a healthier extraction because it's one less chemical you're having to use. That said, Ambrette is not one that is often talked about. It's not one that I have used an awful lot. It is probably one of our most powerful oils. I'm going to get into a little bit today. You know, you can, for the most part, Ambrette it's recognized for being able to soothe the body and helping to stabilize a stressful time. It just kind of brings stabilization, and it really it just stabilizes. I've actually used it for direct impact on the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. And so what I mean by that is, if somebody comes to me and presents with a lot of agitation, possibly, you know, and then I look at these other things, possibly if there's premature graying, prone to, you know, when they get cuts, they have to be very, very careful because they are, what am I trying to say? They're prone to getting infections in their cuts. And maybe they don't even realize it. I don't know. And we'll explain that a little bit more. But people who have a tendency to, like, they get a cut and they get really scared because they're afraid it's going to get infected. And it may not be anything of a significant cut yet. They've had experiences where they've had a rapid infection set in. Now, I'm not saying don't treat the cut appropriately when you first get cut. But what I'm saying is hydrogen peroxide is something the body produces. It is our first line of defense. It actually, when they've run tests and try to determine how things work in this body, when the body gets cut or is injured, the first line of defense is two things: hydrogen peroxide and white blood cells. And the hydrogen peroxide is present in a cut, in a wound, moments before the white blood cells are ever released or determined. So let me back up a minute. Hydrogen peroxide is released, white blood cells are released, but the hydrogen peroxide is present first, and then shortly thereafter, the white blood cells make their appearance. Does that? a little rough time getting that out. But the significance of the hydrogen peroxide is because there's a constituent in Ambrette, and it's not a common constituent. And in fact, Ambrette's makeup is quite unique. It has the ability to support the production of glutathione, which is intriguing to me because it's a different pathway. It's not having any effect on when I think about this, this is how my mind works. So when I think about this, that it has the ability to up-level the production of glutathione, and we'll get to back to the hydrogen peroxide in a minute. But when it has that ability, generally what that means is that it helps the body actually reappropriate the use of glutamate. Typically what happens when we're not producing enough glutathione, it's because the glutamate is being used in a stress reaction. Oftentimes this will happen with in the presence of heavy metals in the brain or in the body, and other toxins too. So when this is going on, dopamine is being oxidized rapidly in order to store heavy metals, because we don't have an elimination process. The only way that we know, I shouldn't say we know, the only way the body knows how to prevent heavy metal toxicity, believe it or not, is glutathione. Because the glutathione, what happens is it's an antioxidant, and so what it does is it reverses the effects of the oxidized dopamine, thereby improving our dopamine levels, because it's being used for cognition and all the other things that dopamine is used for in the body. But when the body is being threatened, like I said, in the case of heavy metals, which we are exposed to quite a bit these days, glutamate steps in and helps in the rapid oxidation of dopamine in order to store that. When the body's no longer in threat, then we can revert and begin to produce glutathione. This happens, like I said, it's in response. It's a stress response. That's a natural response. It's a defense mechanism, and this is why we have oxidative stress. However, when the body's being stressed, that involves the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal axis. Okay, and oftentimes when that's going on as well, the hydrogen peroxide is also being used to store heavy metals in the body. It's involved in the storage of heavy metals in the body, whereas glutamate is involved with storage of heavy metals in the brain, as is dopamine. Yet when all of that calms down, then hydrogen peroxide is deactivated. The body has the ability to deactivate it. Yet when we have high levels of hydrogen peroxide in the body going on as a result of changes to the nitric oxide synthase, then what you ultimately have happen is higher levels of peroxide in the body, and you start to see a lot of breakdown in the mouth, because just know that even though they talk about using peroxide to help eradicate anaerobic bacteria, meaning they introduce hydrogen peroxide, actually introduces oxygen to the bacteria that do not require oxygen to thrive. While it's talked about in some dental circles, it's actually damaging to both hard and soft tissues. There's pretty extensive research that's been conducted in Australia through the Dental Association and so forth, or in conjunction with the Dental Association, they've been able to determine that this hydrogen peroxide is actually damaging. And so high levels of peroxide circulating throughout the body will in fact cause premature graying and cause oral health issues. Enough said about that. So when I think about the fact that Ambrette can support the production of glutathione, that tells me that it's having a direct impact on the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and the adrenal axis. That's my inclination. Okay, that's just how I hear that, because I understand how these two various, although different systems, they're not different. I mean, they're linked. They are interactive, meaning nitric oxide synthase actually has a direct impact on the neurochemistry altogether. So that basically leads me back to going, okay, so people who are having some nitric oxide synthase issues, meaning they're demonstrating that, whether that be digestive, cardiovascular, respiratory, or even mental health issues, they would be good candidates for Ambrette. And that's where I would use it. So that means like anxiety, okay? Or if you have, blood pressure, instability, things along those lines. Those were where I would use something like that. Like I said, also, if I just see if there's no real evidence of anything else going on just yet, but there's premature graying, man, we're going for that. The Ambrette would be a really good one. But the funny thing is you're not going, this is one of those oils where you're not going to get the immediate symptom relief with. You might say you do, and that's awesome. I mean, that's really fantastic. And at the same time, this is not one of those that has a direct impact on an immediate symptom. This is one of those ones that goes in and really creates shifts within the body. And what I'm sharing with you right now is actually what I've decided that everything that I've been doing with this, and I think I may have started 31 days saying this, is that all of this is getting turned into a book. And like I mentioned, it's titled, it's on aromagenomics, and that's this level. People may or may not want the simple use of oils, or the more involved use of oils, and that's okay. It's just we have this available to us, and we have a lot of opportunity right now if we just understand how they're helping us. So that said, the chemical makeup of Ambrette, as I mentioned, is very unique, although it does typically contain nerolidol. Nerolidol is known to increase tissue permeability, so the uptake of Ambrette is pretty rapid. And generally that means it's going to be completely metabolized throughout the body within 15 to 20 minutes max, because it's just been readily absorbed. And it does in fact have does support the adrenals, but the point that I just kind of, I overstepped myself there for a minute. The point I want to get at is, because it's such a unique, there's farnesol is one of the primary constituents in it, and there is actually a receptor. It's called the farnesoid X receptor that is activated by farnesol, and what they recognize, it's located in the liver, the kidney, adrenal tissues, but the liver is the most significant one. And it actually has the ability, it helps to activate, what it does is it influences activity at the farnesoid X receptor. I'm trying to be careful about what I say here, because I don't want to, again, say anything that would be considered misleading. So it has the ability to influence activity on that receptor. And where that is significant, again, has a lot to do with the way the body is, helping in the reduction of oxidative stress. So much so that it has the ability to antagonize a very different genetic function through the production of SOD. I just want to call it SOD. Dismutase. I just lost the first word. Sorry, it's SOD. We typically recognize it as SOD and catalase, which are two different enzymes. But oh my gosh, I cannot believe I just lost that. That is terrible. That will be in the description box. You have my word, because I know as soon as I turn this off, I'm going to remember it. But it's superoxide. Superoxide dismutase. There you go. I don't have to put it in the box. Superoxide dismutase. So farnesol has the ability to stimulate the activity of the farnesoid X receptor, and in turn produce superoxide dismutase, which is a major antioxidant that the body, another major antioxidant. So now we have glutathione has the ability to help with that, but it also helps, but it's doing that through the support of the production of superoxide dismutase, because that antioxidant is produced at the nitric oxide synthase complex. Best word I can come up with there. So I don't know, I mean, just review that. So farnesoid X receptor is activated by the constituent farnesol, which is found in Ambrette. And that receptor when activated, will antagonize the production of oxidative material through the production of superoxide dismutase. And the superoxide dismutase is produced through the nitric oxide synthase process. And that is the reason why Ambrette would be helpful in the production of glutathione also. And so all of this makes a lot of sense. And Ambrette would be really superb oil to be using for anybody who lives in areas that have a lot of traffic, paper companies, anything that's got a lot of heavy metals in the air, because this particular oil is actually going to be very preventive for you. As I mentioned, it does not have any significant role when it comes to immediate symptom relief, but I'll tell you what, that ability right there, just that simple little activity on the epigenome is huge, because it's really helping the body to regulate itself. Yes, oxidative stress is important because it's keeping us protected, but we've got to be able to help the body self-regulate, and that's the beauty of the oils. So I'm going to leave it with that. Please sign up for my newsletter, which you can find at synergessence.com. There's a link for that in the box below. I'd love to have you join me over in Aromatherapy as a Lifestyle. Be looking for my book, Aromagenomics, 50 clinical profiles, and please go visit, check out the blogs. There's a lot of information there. And I just want to tell everybody that how much I really appreciate you being with me on this journey. I love talking about the oils, and this one was an interesting one for me to select today, but because it's not like I can go, hey, yeah, you can use it for depression. No, this one actually is significant when it comes to the way the body is responding to the environment. And my guess is if we actually broke this down even further, and I'm hoping to do that with the blog and when I write more about it, is that there's a direct impact that this has on telomeres, which would be a significant discovery and significant use. So there you have it. You guys take care. Thank you again for tuning in. And until tomorrow, which I think I'll talk about hoe leaf. All right, see ya.